opportunity to stand at this sacred desk to do his bidding and proclaim his gospel to a lost and dying world.
Yes.
Secondly, I'd like to thank Pastor Williams, the ministerial staff, Sister Williams, the WMS Program Committee, stewards, trustees, officers, members of this great church. To God be the glory. If you will, let us turn our attention to the book of Joshua. Book of Joshua, chapter 6, verse 17, and then we'll go to the book of Hebrews, chapter 11, verse 31. Joshua 6 and 17. And the city shall be accursed, even in it and all that are therein, to the Lord. Only Rahab the harlot shall live, she and all that are with her in the house, because she is the messenger that we sent. Hebrews 11:31. By faith, the harlot Rahab did not perish with those who did not believe, when she had received the spies with peace. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts. And see if there be any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. Father God, I ask you to decrease me and increase your spirit in through me. In Jesus' name I pray. This morning, church, my topic for today is from harlot to heroic woman of faith. This morning, we're going to look at how God transformed the harlot named Rahab into a heroic woman of faith through her obedience, sacrifice, and trust in Jehovah God. Rahab was an obscure character in the Old Testament history. God still used her. We know she was very significant because she was mentioned several times in the New Testament. Hebrews 11:31 talks about her heroic faith. She was mentioned in the genealogy of Jesus in Matthew 1 and 5. And she was also mentioned in James 2 and 25 as being justified by her works when she stepped out on faith and hid the spies. Who was Rahab? She was clearly a sinner, just like you and me. She was an unclean person for years because of her lifestyle. Because of her past, not many people will be lining up to associate with her. In this day and time, she wouldn't have very many BFFs. Rahab didn't follow the crowd, however. She feared God and acted upon her fear out of obedience to God. It was her obedience that saved her. Rahab lived in the city of Jericho with her family. Her lifestyle was punishable by death. But for God's mercy and grace, He kept her and protected her and her family, even in the midst of her mess. Rahab was considered a heathen and pagan woman, and she practiced idolatry. But she was industrious. She was able to hide the spies among her stock of flax that she laid in order on the roof. These very stocks and flax produced the thread-like fibers that were later spun to thread and make clothing, and a scarlet cord that she would use to let the spies down out the window for their safe escape. She was honest, and she kept her promise to the spies and did not reveal their hiding place. Why was Rahab so significant in who she was and who she became? Well, no, I'm sorry. Why was her name so significant? Because in biblical days, names were of significance. Rahab's name was significant, it meant robbed. And in the Hebrew, it translated as meaning make large, make room, or make wide or open. Her name had meaning in her life because she started out on a broad path, just like me and you did at one point. We were all on a broad path. But one day, we heard from the Lord. And we accepted Him as our Savior. And now we're on the narrow path, made disciples of Christ. She was in the Word world, doing worldly things. She was disconnected from God. Again, then one day she heard from the Lord, and that He was Jehovah God. And out of fear and obedience and trust in the Lord, she received her salvation. She was now, as I said earlier, on the narrow road called life. The second part of her name was make room. When we seek God first, put Him first in all things, then He will start to make room for our gifts to be used in the upbuilding of His kingdom. So put God first, no matter what. He used Rahab's gift of obedience, selflessness, and her transformational life to draw her family into salvation. Look at God. He's still doing that today. Why was she so significant in God's plan and purpose? God wanted to use her life as an example to portray the total apostasy during that time. And that means the falling away of the Israelites. That those individuals like we find today that decide to do things in their own way and what's good in their sight, of their eyes, and not trust God as their Savior. You know, they're in the world, and we're in the world. We want to do those worldly things. We want to do those things that make us feel good and turn away from God. If we want to do things in our own way. Help me. God wanted to use her life, again, as an example. As He uses our lives as an example. God wanted to use her life to show others that He can change anybody.